Hi guys, thank you for clicking on this video. My name's Aisha and this is aishaleeanntalks. So today's story is absolutely insane. We are going to be talking about a woman named Eleanor Williams who was recently sent to prison for 8.5 years for 9 counts of perverting the course of justice. Her absolutely outrageous lies have ruined the lives of multiple men, have caused protests in her hometown of Barrow-in-Furness in the UK, and have also sparked Justice for Ellie campaigns. Her false allegations have also caused 3 men to attempt to take their own lives, and one of these men was admitted into a psychiatric facility. So Ellie had claimed to the police that she had been raped by multiple men and that she had been groomed and trafficked by an Asian grooming gang. She also inflicted some absolutely horrific injuries upon herself with a hammer to support her claims. And she then took to Facebook, sharing photos of these self-inflicted injuries. And alongside these photos, she shared an absolutely terrifying tale, which we will go into more detail in a little while. So stick around if you want to hear more about it. But this Facebook post was shared more than 100,000 times, and it was this post that sparked the protests in her hometown and the Justice for Ellie campaign. But it also put a target on the Asian community, which was only a small percentage of this community, because they now thought that there was an Asian grooming gang in town, and there quickly became rumours that the police were trying to cover it all up. This meant that quite a lot of Asian people in the community were targeted, and so were quite a lot of businesses. So this story is actually just a whole heap of crazy, and I have had to trawl through so many articles to piece absolutely everything together to get the whole story and compile it all into this video for you. This story began in 2017 when Ellie was 16 years old. It said that she was just chilling, hanging out, drinking a bit of alcohol, smoking a little bit of weed with a load of people at a guy named Cameron Bibby's house. Ellie had had a little bit too much to drink, a little bit too much to smoke, and had begun feeling a little bit unwell. She would later go on to claim that she had been spiked. Cameron and his friends, they got concerned about her well-being, and they got in touch with her mother and her sister, who came to collect her. They took her home. They then ended up taking her to a hospital, and it was at the hospital that she claimed to the nursing staff there that she had been sexually assaulted by Cameron at his home. The nursing staff at the hospital obviously called the police. The police came out. They arrested Cameron, but shortly after his arrest, Ellie would go on to drop the charges. But unfortunately, this was just the very beginning. At some point, Ellie accused a man named Oliver Gardner of being a trafficker. She claimed that he forced her to take cocaine, that he raped her, and that he attempted to try and sell her. Now, Oliver had only actually met Ellie once in the town centre, so just imagine his surprise when the police started knocking on his door, accusing him of rape and trafficking. This was later found to be a complete fabrication and was completely disproved by the CCTV. Oliver described the situation as just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and claimed that his life had been completely turned upside down by these allegations. He ended up attempting to take his own life and was sectioned under the Mental Health Act twice, both times being admitted into a psychiatric facility. He said that that entire period of his life was just completely overwhelming. In a statement, he claimed that he'd tried to take his own life before he had been sectioned. He said that he'd had to completely remove himself from all social media because of the online abuse. He was terrified to go and pick up his son from nursery because of the way that people would look at him. And shortly after the Facebook post, people began to display Justice for Ellie stickers in their windows, and all of his neighbours seemed to be displaying the stickers, and he said that this would be quite intimidating for him. Another unfortunate victim of Ellie's lies was a man named Jordan Trengrove. It was either Trengrove or Tengrove. I don't know which one it is because it was spelt differently in 2 different articles, and now I'm really confused. But his name's Jordan. So in 2018, a colleague at Ellie's workplace contacted the police because Ellie had gone into work claiming that she had been raped in her flat by Jordan. She then went on to claim that Jordan had raped her on another two occasions as well. Jordan claims that his life has been utterly destroyed by these allegations. Jordan's nightmare began on a night out in 2019. He explained, "Me and a friend were going out and Ellie Williams had no one to go out with, so she tagged along with us. I don't know her well, but I thought she was okay. She seemed to be a nice enough girl and we had a good time for a while that night. I was never alone with her and it was all perfectly innocent." Following this, Ellie alleged that she had been raped that night and another 2 nights following this by Jordan. She would go on to claim that Jordan came to her house and threatened her with a knife, and she fabricated injuries to try and support the claims, which becomes quite a recurring theme in this story. Following Ellie's accusations, the word rapist was sprayed across Jordan's house. His windows were smashed and he was arrested in front of his entire family, and he ended up spending 10 weeks in prison, where he was placed on a sex offenders wing with a self-confessed paedophile. Even though, at the time of the allegation, Jordan was actually in the back of a police car having had an altercation with a taxi driver outside of a nightclub in Barrow. Jordan claims that he is now bringing on a civil lawsuit against the police for not properly investigating cast iron alibis, and that he is very much urging the police to listen to the accused as well as the accuser. Jordan said following the conviction, "Things had calmed down a bit until the Facebook post in 2020. This made things worse for me. There were big protests and marches in Barrow. The lowest point was when I tried to end my own life in August 2020. And he said that he doesn't think that Ellie has actually shown any kind of remorse whatsoever.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone for all the support that's been shown. I'd like to thank the police for all the work they've done. I don't think the sentence is long enough, in my opinion, for what she's done to us all. I don't think she has any remorse. I looked back a few times while the judge was speaking and there was just no remorse shown. So, well, I've tried ending my life over it. I've had a bond with my son. I've not been able to leave the house. I've not been able to go to work, so it's just, now I know she's locked away for a bit longer, it's just a bit of a relief, but I wish it was longer a sentence. As bad as it sounds, I do think I'm going to move out of the area, and so I'm not in the same area as when she's released. Still love to know why, but we'll never know, I guess.
Now, the most outrageous claims that Ellie made were about a man named Mohammed Ramzan. Mohammed was accused of grooming and trafficking Ellie from the age of 12-13. Ellie falsely claimed that Mohammed had taken her across the regions and forced her into having sex with other men. She described lots of beatings. She described witnessing other girls being beaten. She describes a girl nearly dying as a result of a beating, and another girl having a dog set on her. Ellie told the police that Mohammed had taken her to Amsterdam. He had forced her to work in a brothel, and then he attempted to sell her for 25,000 euros. But unfortunately for Mohammed, or fortunately for her, in this makeshift scenario anyway, the buyer didn't actually go through with the deal. At the time that Ellie was in Amsterdam, Mohammed's bank card was being used in a B&Q in Barrow, and there is very strong evidence that the entire time that she was in Amsterdam, she was actually with her sister and her sister's boyfriend. Ellie claimed that Mohammed had taken her to Blackpool, where he had forced her to have sex with multiple men. Well, this was proved not to be true. She was actually in a hotel where she was sat watching YouTube. Ellie also claimed that Mohammed had taken her to Ibiza to take her to go and have sex with more men, but she then retracted these allegations when the police suggested that they check the flight documents. And then she would go on to maintain these allegations when she went to court, which is absolutely bizarre to me. This woman is actually insane. Like, honestly, I've never seen anything like it. It's like Like this is like worse than some Amber Heard type crap. Honestly, wow. So Mohammed was arrested over these lies, and he then became a victim of abuse himself. He said that his family had received over 500 death threats, and he branded her absolute delusional and a fantasist in court. Speaking in the witness box, Mohammed Ramzan, he confessed that he had attempted to take his own life 2 weeks following his arrest. He testified that his life had been turned into a complete living hell due to the baseless allegations, and that he still bears the scars to this day. Mohammed reported that his property had been vandalised and that his businesses had been destroyed following the targeting of him and his family in what he described the most horrendous way. He said, "I have had death threats from all over the world because of what they thought I was involved in. We had messages like, people are going to rape my wife in front of me, from Islamophobia to racism to just general hate. People wishing me dead. My children had fire extinguishers and baseball bats by their beds for their safety because we had threats. People were going to burn our shops down, burn us down. We had rental properties in town smashed in. Is that the type of persecution that goes on today in a town where there are only a handful of Asians and everyone knows these Asians? They've dealt with me. I fed them all, from the children to the adults to the grandparents, and they turned on me." Speaking outside the courtroom following Ellie's conviction, Mohammed Ramzan's words really hit home, and I feel like the way that he's handled this situation is truly inspiring.
There's no winners here today. I feel no sense of triumph, only sadness for the loss of the years, the impact on my family, here we are, and the true impact that this will have on true victims. That's the loss here of slavery and sexual abuse. As a father and an uncle to my amazing girls, this fills me with profound sadness. Word profound, there, profound sadness this is. Only the love and unwavering support from my family enabled me to endure this nightmare. To give me the strength I needed, because I did need a lot of strength. These are the people that you in my family to carry on, for which I'm truly thankful, because there was a fight, So I'm not sure how my family and I are going to recover from this. The mud sticks, and I fear it may take some time. But as a family, we remain strong, and we will be strong. And we're determined to move forward positively with our lives. And we won't be leaving battle. We will be still remaining in battle with friends, because that's what I want. The impact is what we've been through. It's difficult. It's been hard. It's very impacted. It's impacted us all in different ways, in different manners. But that's now. We've got to think about moving forward. We have mentioned this to the MP, Simon Fell, and there is things that we are working on ourselves as a campaign. We are taking on a campaign to change the social media laws in the UK. We are looking at that as a family. I've had actual victims come out to me, real victims of abuse, real victims of wrongly arrested, wrongly accused, because of the way
problem, isn't it?
It's a huge problem. It is a problem. It's a true problem. And I'm not taking the facts away from real victims. The real victims do exist. There is issues of grooming, there's sexual problem, but how are we as a government, as a country, how to balance it? It's not right. It's not right. Because this one thing has taught us as a family, we are strong. We are unbreakable, and we're a strong family. And that's the way, and I love my children.
Priceless,
I love my priceless. Priceless.
Yeah, you've got to take a positive from what's happened rather than a negative.
To me, the way I see this is where the teachings come from. You can learn academically at a school, you can learn about a religion in a church or a mosque, but your values, your traditions, they come from
in your home.
They come from your parents. They come from the class of your life you have. And you sat here listening to this, one lie after another, or one case of another. And I'm so thankful that they did the right thing. And the officers, at the beginning I said it was much of an inconvenience of what they did to us. And when the police took all our devices, took our phones, the businesses, and it was at that time there was a lot of frustration. It was anger towards the police, thinking, what the hell they're doing? But I am glad they did. because that gave us every evidence, every shred of doubt was given. And I give them all my devices, all my kids' devices, everything. Every electronic device you can think of in the house and business related was taken. So there was no doubt in any way of the investigation. And I'm so thankful to Dougie Marsh, Andrew Hill, Gary Hume, and John Robinson. What a legend of an officer he was, and Porter Call. I can't thank the police enough for doing what they did. This is the closure. This is it. We're moving on. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you.
In what the prosecution called her final event, on the 19th of May 2020, Ellie was found not far from her home by the police, sporting some absolutely horrific injuries. A hammer was found nearby with only her DNA on it, which was identical to a hammer that she was caught on CCTV purchasing in a Tesco store. Now this is the CCTV clip of her purchasing the hammer. Here we can see Ellie approaching the self-checkout and putting a couple of items down on the side. And here we have a clear view of the hammer in question. She then spends a bit of time faffing about. She then starts scanning things. We then see her scan the hammer. She pays for her items, packs them into her bag, and she leaves the store. But Ellie claimed that she had been groomed and trafficked by an Asian trafficking gang. That day, her sister had reported her missing, but this wouldn't have been taken too seriously because it's been reported that she had been reported missing over 130 times. The following day, Ellie would go on to post the infamous post that caused absolute havoc in her neighbourhood. I couldn't find a copy of the full post, so I have had to kind of piece it all together from various bits off of various articles to try and work out what the post actually was. But she began by saying that she was safe, but the pictures and the absolutely horrifying tale that she told kind of said a different story. On the 20th of May 2020, Ellie would start typing on Facebook, "This is the hardest post that I'm ever gonna have to write." She would then go on to claim that she had been abducted to have sex with 3 Asian men and that she had been trafficked all across the north of England. She posted several pictures of herself sporting bruises and black eyes and some just truly horrific injuries. She said, "When people have asked me why I have a black eye or bruises, I have made every excuse from falling over to banging on a door. I don't want to share this, but people need to know about this local and very real issue. People need to be looking out for young girls and protecting them. If me sharing my story helps raise awareness and helps just one person, then it will make it worthwhile." It's kind of ironic that rather than helping people, she actually destroyed people with this post. In addition to raping and brutalising her, she accused the perpetrators, who she described as evil and clever, of many other quite horrifying acts which echoed stories of true trafficking victims, which is one of the reasons why I think she was believed. She said, "They have given me drugs to the point I was nearly addicted to heroin. They have stripped me naked, beaten me, and dumped me in the middle of nowhere with nothing. I mean nothing. No money, no phone, no ID, clothes, shoes, nothing. They did this in winter. I was found with hypothermia. They have broken my ribs, many bones in my face. They have split my ear, cut into my body, branded me with letters. They have dislocated my elbow. They have stabbed me." And she claimed that they had used her as an ashtray and put cigarettes out on her. Ellie claimed that she was abducted and taken to go and have sex with 3 Asian men because she hadn't been attending parties for the previous 7 weeks due to the coronavirus pandemic. She accused the men of trying to cut her finger off, and she included pictures of her finger wrapped in a bloodied gauze. Other photos also appeared to show cuts that she claimed they had inflicted upon her to try and teach her a lesson. Although she didn't actually name any of her alleged abusers in her Facebook post, names quickly began to circulate on Snapchat and fingers very quickly began pointing. At the time, Ellie had probably no idea the implications that this one bombshell post could possibly have. However, her words sparked a series of events that would lead to multiple court cases, would lead to people's lives being destroyed, people having to flee their homes, protests in her hometown, and Ellie herself being sent to prison for 8.5 years. This post was shared over 100,000 times and sparked a Justice for Ellie campaign. People were buying stickers, t-shirts, posters. It was getting stuck everywhere. It also sparked demonstrations in Barrow, which then led to former English Defence League founder Tommy Robinson to come and visit the town to try and investigate the claims. And this is what Tommy said.
We're on the M6, we're on the way to Barrow. There's been a developing story. A young girl put a statement out on Facebook showing horrific injuries and said how she's been groomed by gangs of Muslim business owners in the town. So we're about to visit a guy who accusations were made that he raped Ellie. He ended up being remanded, spent months and months in jail, and then he was cleared for a lack of evidence. I've just met that man, I feel for him so badly. You can't have false allegations of rape against a man, that will destroy his life. My head's totally fried on this. I don't know what to think.
We're stopping a lot of people today. We have been stopping a lot of people.
How many other journalists you stopped today?
You're the first one. But I've stopped loads of bikes.
Is that where you're from? Yeah. What do you think of the media reaction to it? Had you heard of these gangs operate?
Because it's just a big corrupt system. It's a cover-up.
Do you know anything about Amy Fenton? And he knew of these rumours or allegations 10 years ago. Your leading police officer has come out and said that there's no Asian grooming gang in this town.
I know there is.
Watching that on the other side of the road and seeing all these people coming together and their feeling and their emotion, it makes you emotional. It made me emotional watching it. It was a great feeling as well to see camaraderie, people coming together. The only thing again is the conflicting accounts that I didn't expect to receive since I've been up here. Just shows how much more we've got to find out.
The post sparked national outrage and led to some really dangerous racial unrest. On May 23rd, 3 days following this post that Ellie put on Facebook, there were protests outside of a police station in the middle of the car park of a retail park. Amid the heightened racial tensions in the town, a curry house had its windows smashed in. A Muslim takeaway owner was chased down the street by men who would go on to pour alcohol all over his head. Another man saw his wife leave him over the claims, while another man ended up being basically ran out of the town. Indian restaurants had bricks thrown through their windows. Shop owners were being spat at. One man said that he lost 90% of his customer base after a list had circulated on Snapchat which named his business as complicit in Ellie's abuse. It was revealed that 151 separate crimes were committed in connection to this case, 83 of which were hate crimes. And other crimes were things like public order offences and criminal damage. And just as an extra kick in the teeth, a Just Giving fundraiser was set up to try and help raise money to help Ellie bring her abusers to justice, which raised £22,000. But evidence would go on to show that she had completely fabricated absolutely everything and inflicted the injuries on herself, because the CCTV would show that she went and bought the hammer herself, and at the time of these allegations, like that she was supposedly being trafficked and abused, she was caught on CCTV holed up in a hotel. Police released a statement claiming that they had found no evidence of Asian grooming gangs in town, but being faced with Ellie's images all over the place and everything that was going on, the public didn't buy it. And that is where the rumours started that the police were trying to cover it all up. Simon Fell, MP for Barrow-in-Furness, said, "I was relatively new to the job when the first email pinged in about Ellie Williams and the now infamous post she'd put on Facebook. We were locked down, the streets were quiet, and many people were at home, keeping in touch with the world through social media. The message from the constituent was to the point. What are you going to do about it? Soon there was a deluge of messages from parents concerned for their children, teachers for the community leaders concerned about Barrow's reputation, and then from some of the accused too, and so began a very long process of learning about Mrs. Williams' allegations, speaking to the police and hearing a great deal from the community in surgeries, in private meetings and through social media. The community were outraged. I didn't know where to turn. The images that Ellie shared were horrific, and the stories she told of being groomed, beaten and abused were every parent's worst nightmare. This could happen here, in such a tight-knit community. People turned to me, time and time again. How did we not know?" Well, clearly they didn't know, because it didn't happen. I really can't get my head around how somebody can actually fabricate this stuff. Like, what kind of crazy messed up shit have you got to be to do that? When Ellie made her very first appearance in Preston Crown Court to deny the charges in 2020, there was a huge group of people that had gathered outside. They were carrying Justice for Ellie placards, they were shouting. There were many people there supporting her, but by the time her trial rolled around in November of 2022, there was nobody at all there to support her. As Ellie was sat alone in the dock, dressed in her tiny little neat black clothing, the only people that were there were many police officers that had gathered and come to witness and see the results of a very emotionally charged investigation, one that has been described as the most emotionally charged investigation in Cumbria's policing history. The evidence was overwhelming. They found in court that she had fabricated injuries to support her claims, that she had doctored text messages, that she had just manipulated absolutely everything to make it look as though she had been trafficked and abused. One man who she had saved in her phone as Shaggy Wood, she alleged was one of these Asian traffickers. This actually turned out to be a ginger-haired boy from Essex who believed that he was talking to a girl from Portsmouth whom he was actually looking forward to going to meet. On another occasion, she accused a man of threatening to kill her unless she had sex with 8 men in Blackpool, but this was proved to be yet another fabrication, with the CCTV showing that she had booked herself into a hotel, and the only time that she had left this hotel was a brief trip to the shops, which she then came back and spent the rest of her time in the hotel. While Ellie was supposedly being trafficked, abused, and forced to have sex with multiple men, here she is at 8:20 in the evening, checking herself into a Blackpool hotel alone. An hour later, we see her leave the hotel. She's then seen on CCTV in a nearby shop. And 20 minutes after leaving the hotel, she returns, alone. Then 24 hours later, we see her leaving the hotel, alone and unharmed. Deputy Chief Constable Mark Webster claims that businesses were forced to close and people had been forced to flee their homes, all because of the outcry in the community. Videos of English Defence League founder Tommy Robinson were shown in court, but Ellie said that she hadn't instigated anything which happened in the community and she didn't want Tommy Robinson to come to Barrow, saying, "I do not agree with his views or opinions." In a letter to the judge, Ellie said, "I'm not saying I'm guilty, but I know I've done wrong in some of this, and I'm sorry. I'm devastated at the trouble that has been caused in Barrow, and if I knew what consequences would have come from that status, I never would have posted it." Eleanor's defence maintained that her allegations were true, claiming that they didn't see any motive. And apparently I can't do a video without Doggy Interruptus. Mwah! During evidence, she initially denied telling a pack of lies to the police and to the jury, and when asked about her allegations, she said, "I wanted people to know what was going on in Barrow, still is." But the jury didn't believe her, and they instead found her guilty of making these claims up as part of some sick and twisted fantasy. Sentencing Judge Robert Altham said that there was no explanation for Ellie's lies, and he criticised her for not showing any signs of remorse. He said that she was not racially motivated because she chose to accuse not only Asians but white men as well. I have found a clip where he explains how he came to the decision on Ellie's sentence.
We are aware that sex trafficking of young females does occur. There is a risk that genuine victims will, as a result of this defendant's actions, feel deterred from reporting it. People may be less likely to believe their allegations. I'm sure that those charged with investigating such offences will do all in their power to avoid any reluctance to investigate such allegations. In this case, I make reduction for the defendant's age, then for personal mitigation. In relation to count 9 only, I reduce the sentence for credit for a guilty plea. I then further adjust the sentences for totality. To assist in understanding how I've arrived at my overall sentence, I've first set out the sentences after trial for each count without applying any reduction for any of these factors. In relation to count 1, the sentence would have been 2 years imprisonment. For counts 2, 3 and 4, 5 years imprisonment, concurrent with each other, but consecutive to the sentence on count 1. For counts 5, 6 and 7, 7.5 years imprisonment, concurrent with each other, but consecutive to the sentences already imposed. For count 8, 2 years imprisonment, and for count 9, 1 year and 4 months imprisonment, both consecutive to the sentences already imposed. I then turn to the various reductions for the factors mentioned above. The defendant was a child when she committed the offence at count 1. The relevant guideline indicates that the court should take as its starting point the sentence likely to have been imposed on the date at which the offence was committed. That sentence would have been, if custodial, a detention and training order of less than 2 years. The reduction from the adult sentence will be 1/2 for count 1. In relation to the other counts, the reduction for age will be of the order of 1/4. There will be a reduction for age of 1/3 from the adult sentence in relation to counts 2 to 4. In relation to the other counts, the reduction for age will be of the order of 1/4. She was 19 during much of this offending. After her false allegations about Mr. Trengove, this was not impulsive offending arising from naivety. That explains the lesser reduction. I then reduce the sentences further to take account of her personal mitigation. I then reduce the sentence on count 9 to reflect her credit. Finally, I take account of totality. I do this by making the sentences on counts 8 and 9 concurrent with each other and other sentences, and by further reducing the sentences on counts 5 to 7. Eleanor Williams, please stand up. These are the sentences that you will serve. On count 1, there will be a sentence of 6 months imprisonment. On counts 3 to 5, the sentence will be 3 years imprisonment, concurrent on each count, but consecutive to the sentence on count 1, giving a total so far of 3.5 years. There will be sentences of 5 years on counts 5, 6 and 7, concurrent with one another, but consecutive to the sentences already imposed. Finally, there will be a sentence of 1 year and 3 months imprisonment on count 8 and 6 months imprisonment on count 9. Those sentences to run concurrently with each other and the other sentences imposed. That gives a total sentence of 8.5 years imprisonment. You will serve half of the total sentence of imprisonment in custody, after which you will be released on licence. The days spent in custody will count towards your sentence. You have spent 361 days on a qualifying curfew. Because of that, the time you must spend in custody is reduced by 179 days. If that figure is incorrect, it can be corrected later without a further hearing. On release, your licence will be subject to conditions. If you breach the terms of your licence, you'll be liable to be recalled to serve the remainder of the sentence. There is an application for a serious crime prevention order. I find that this is a serious offence for the purposes of this application. There are reasonable grounds for believing that the order will protect the public. I exercise my discretion in favour of making the order as sought, with amendments to the effect that she may also possess a tablet and games console, and that you may also be able to operate a work and a personal email. That order will run for a period of 5 years from the 17th of February 2025. I order deprivation and destruction of the items on page 1 of Divider 8 of the Crown's bundle of documents. If the statutory surcharge applies, the order can be drawn up in the appropriate amount. Thank you. Sit down, please.
Ellie's mother, 51-year-old Labour councillor for Barrow, Alliston Johnson, stood by Ellie, claiming that she believed her daughter. Alliston was then suspended from Labour following an intervention. Not only has this girl ruined the lives of how many men, but now she's also ruined her mother's career too. Alliston claimed that Ellie was subject to a NRM, which is a National Referral Mechanisms order, and this claimed that Ellie had been trafficked for sexual purposes since the age of 12. The NRM was introduced in 2019 following the signing of... I'm sorry, I'm going to have to read it from here because I've just tried to say this multiple times and I just can't. Signing of the Council of European Convention on Action Against Trafficking in Human Beings. Sorry, for some reason I just couldn't say that. It was designed to identify and protect victims of modern slavery and human trafficking. Alliston said, "The order says Ellie was a victim of exploitation and trafficking from the age of 12. Personally, I don't believe that, because I think as her mother I would have known something was happening to her at such a young age. But to us, her family, it says that she was telling the truth, that she was a victim in the way that she claimed to be as her mother. I believe her. There are parts of it she made up, but I do believe that substantially she was telling the truth, and she was a victim of abuse and trafficking. I also don't believe that Ellie inflicted those injuries on herself. She couldn't have caused them." But to be fair, I mean, what mother would want to believe that their daughter was capable of doing something like this? I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't want to believe that anyone would be capable of doing something like this. I'm not going to lie, it does make me wonder whether something might have happened, maybe something minor, and she has embellished the story so much that now it's just not believable. Maybe something happened to her like years and years ago and it just messed with her head. I don't know, but I feel like this girl needs like psychological help. A Labour spokesperson said, "The party does not comment on internal party matters, and any complaints are investigated in line with our rules and procedures. These men were falsely accused of the most serious sexual abuse and exploitation, and in the face of overwhelming evidence, it was right for us to bring a prosecution. I'd like to reassure victims of rape and serious assault that we take allegations of sexual offending very seriously. There is a high bar to be met for us to prosecute a case of perverting the course of justice. A prosecution will only be brought in circumstances where there is clear evidence that the allegations were provably false, maliciously made, and that it is in the public interest to do so, considering factors like mental health and vulnerability as a part of that decision making. I hope now Williams has been brought to justice for her actions. The men she falsely accused can move on with their lives. It's important for people to understand that these were far from victimless crimes. Williams named specific individuals as being responsible for trafficking and abusing her, individuals who were found to have committed no such offences. In a number of cases, her claims led to innocent men being arrested by officers who understandably took such appalling allegations seriously. Williams had produced compelling evidence when reporting her abuse. However, as detectives investigated her accounts, they found evidence that Williams not only lied but concocted evidence to support her allegations, including creating fake Snapchat accounts and inflicting injuries on herself. Cases such as this, where someone invented crimes and concocted evidence, are extremely rare, what is sadly not rare is physical and sexual abuse against children and young adults. It occurs in Barrow, in Cumbria, and across the country. And here he is also explaining how the investigation was conducted.
If you could tell us, first of all, how thoroughly the initial accusations by Eleanor Williams were taken.
Well, they were taken really seriously, and there was a lot of officers assigned to the case initially, and we did everything we could to thoroughly investigate them. And obviously it took us to an area that we didn't expect. We had officers from Lancashire Constabulary helping as well, and it became clear early on through CCTV evidence that things were not all what they seemed.
And how did the investigation change at that point?
Well, at that point, we kept the same level of investigation going, the same thoroughness for each allegation that came forward, and safeguarding of Eleanor Williams was always the top priority throughout the investigation, even at the point where we became pretty sure that she wasn't telling the truth. Safeguarding was still paramount even at that point, but everything that she ever reported was investigated thoroughly to a high degree.
You've got a lot of experience as an investigator. Have you ever seen a case like this before?
No, I haven't. I've dealt with a lot of abuse cases, a lot of child abuse cases previously, and I've never seen anything that's gone to this level and had such implications, you know, for the local community. I worked many years in Barrow. I've got a strong affinity to the area, and I was really saddened to see the outcome of what happened.
What would you say to someone who's a survivor of abuse but has never come forward, and they were maybe considering coming forward and reporting what had happened to them?
Yes, well, I mean, you know, despite the fact that I've been the SIO for this case, I've also been the SIO previously on many other cases where victims of abuse have come forward. Any victims taken seriously, their evidence is recorded, they're referred to support if they want it, and that a full investigation is carried out, and that's always been a strong feature for this constabulary.
Speaking after the sentencing, Mr. Pearman said, "My biggest concern throughout this period has been that these false allegations would discourage genuine victims of abuse from coming forward. It's important to note that Williams's allegations could not have been taken more seriously when she came forward. A large-scale investigation was launched, and those she made allegations against were arrested and interviewed. This has been a lengthy, complex, and ultimately tragic case, as well as a dark period for Barrow. I hope that the full story, now in the public domain, will demonstrate that the public take allegations of sexual abuse extremely seriously and will investigate thoroughly. I urge anyone who has been a victim of sexual or physical abuse to report it today. You will be listened to and supported."
Could you just introduce yourself first of all?
So my name's Matt Pearman. I'm the Superintendent for Policing in Westmoreland and Furness BCU, and Barrow in Furness in particular.
So what was the impact on the Barrow community of those Facebook posts when they were published?
So initially when they were published there was outrage, and I understand why that would be the case, because the pictures were shocking. Unfortunately it led to people wrongly and without any foundation, targeting elements of the Asian community. And also it led to the community not understanding the response that the police had in respect of that. So there was Facebook campaigns set up with well over 100,000 people subscribing to it, so it was a really large audience. We saw people drawn into Barrow to support the campaigns that were being raised. We saw protests in the community, and unfortunately we saw members of the Asian community being targeted. Some had to leave the area, their businesses were damaged, property damaged, vandalised, all in respect of those Facebook posts. And we were unable as a police service to go out to the community and explain what was happening in the context of those posts because of the ongoing investigations and the fear of compromising future court proceedings.
What was the impact on policing in South Cumbria of all this?
So when people saw those images, they saw a young woman with injuries, facial injuries and other injuries on social media, and viewed her as a victim. And the natural response to that is what the police doing to protect that victim. We took the allegations from Eleanor Williams really seriously, and it was as a result of that that we were able to then investigate and discover that the allegations had been fabricated and were essentially lies. But we couldn't tell the public that. So the relationship with the public, and bear in mind that this was in the COVID pandemic, the relationship with the public was already tested in new ways through the regulations, through the coronavirus regulations. So this additional pressure in terms of the relationship and that lack of understanding that we were able to give people in terms of why we were acting in a particular way and arresting this young woman was really challenging for us, and it saw widespread protest in Barrow. It brought groups and individuals from outside of the county into Barrow, and it saw some quite prominent individuals commenting on the case on a national level, again talking about circumstances which we were unable to explain to the broader public. And that relationship with the public is really important to us, and we are still rebuilding that now. And not only that, there was damage to the relationship with our partners as well, because some of the anger was pointed towards other statutory services who equally were unable to explain the full context of what was being alleged by Eleanor Williams.
And now that the case has concluded, is it that you'd like to say to the public?
Firstly, I would say to anybody who is a victim of exploitation or abuse, report it, speak to the police. You will be believed, you will be listened to, and we will support you. We work really collaboratively with partners to put support in place for victims. There's probably something around social media in terms of it's very easy to believe what you see on social media and take it at face value, but in this case it's been proven to actually been really damaging to the community.
Now, this story is just like, oh my god, what in the world? Like, how can somebody make up such horrendous stories? I really don't understand how somebody could do that. And unfortunately, these stories have not only, caused trouble for the people that she made the allegations against, but this has also caused trouble for so many other people in the community as well. I really hope that this situation hasn't put people off coming forward if they have suffered abuse themselves, because it's insane. Like, how could somebody do this? And I could understand why it would put people off, but I really, really, really hope that it doesn't. And I also do wonder why they haven't looked into her mental health a bit more. I mean, they've sentenced her to prison, yeah, but shouldn't they have, surely something's got to be going on up there for somebody to be spouting such crap, how did she even come up with these stories? Why is she coming up with these stories? Why are we not looking into a bit more of this? I don't know. Why don't you tell me? What do you think? What do you think about this story? Do you think it's as insane as I think it is? Because, I can't get my head around how somebody could do that, or why somebody would do that. I'd like to know what you guys think. How do you think somebody could actually come up with such stories? Or why do you think somebody would come up with such stories? It doesn't make sense. And I just want to take recognition to these poor men that have been through absolute hell undeservedly. Like, to say this whole case was just absolutely wow. And I think I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you for watching this video. If you are new and you don't know what I do, I tell hardship stories. So I tell celebrity stories, I tell everyday people stories, I tell stories that I find in the news. So if you have a story that you would like me to share or something that you would like me to talk about, you can contact me via my email or my Facebook, which I will leave linked in the description box down below. Otherwise, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It is a free and easy way that you can support this channel. And until next time, remember to look after yourselves and be kind to everybody around you, because you never know what someone else might be going through, and a little bit of kindness and compassion can go a long way. Bye bye for now.